At Revenge Mosaicum, some stories don't announce themselves. They arrive as a small disturbance in a place that usually stays the same. This one began with an object that never wandered, and the quiet certainty that followed when it finally did. Marissa Cole's experience matters because nothing about it was loud at first. The damage didn't begin with a crash. It began with trust sitting exactly where it always sat until it didn't. This is how she remembers it. I noticed the desk before anything else. The light from the hallway fell across the wood in a way that made the empty space obvious. My keys were always there, not tucked, not tossed, set down every night, in the same place. I stood there longer than I needed to, hoodie half on, one sock on, one missing. My hand hovered where the keys should have been, like they might come back if I waited. They didn't. I walked outside and felt the morning air hit my face. The driveway was wrong, too open. The space where my dad's new crossover usually sat was clean, like it had been erased. My phone rang. "County Sheriff's Department," the voice said. Calm, professional. "We're calling about a vehicle registered to Howard Cole." My stomach dropped. "There was an accident early this morning." He continued. "Single vehicle." The driver identified herself as Jenna Cole. I leaned against the doorframe. "Is she okay?" "She's alive. Minor injuries. Alcohol was noted at the scene." I closed my eyes. Did she have permission to drive the vehicle? "No," I said. The word came out flat, certain. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet for the kind of morning this was becoming. Dad came down the stairs a few minutes later, adjusting his watch like it was a normal day. "What's going on?" he asked. "The car's gone." He paused. "Let's slow this down." When Jenna walked in hours later with a cut on her forehead and eyes that wouldn't meet mine, the air shifted. "I borrowed Marissa's car," she said quickly. "I thought it was fine." Dad looked at me. "Did you leave the keys out? I was asleep." Jenna's voice cracked. "You said it was okay. That's not true. There are moments when a room stops deciding who it wants to believe." At Revenge Mosaicum, we noticed the silence stretch just long enough to matter. Dad reached for his phone. "I'm calling the insurance company. Later." When he asked quietly if I would say I'd given permission, I shook my head. I won't lie to protect something that already broke. If this story stays with you, follow along for more quiet truths like this. Dad stood in the kitchen with his phone in his hand, not calling anyone yet. He'd poured coffee and forgotten to drink it. The mug sat by the sink, steam thinning into the air. "Sit down," he said, like this was going to be a conversation with rules. "I'm fine." He looked past me toward the driveway. "Cars don't just disappear." "The sheriff called," I said. "It was Jenna." He exhaled through his nose. Not a sigh. More like pressure. "That doesn't mean anything yet. They said there was alcohol. That still doesn't mean what you think it means." He set the phone face down on the counter. "We don't jump to conclusions." I leaned against the fridge. The floor felt cold through my socks. She took the keys from my desk. His eyes flicked up. "You don't know that. They were both there last night. You asked me to move your car in the morning." He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the phone. "A habit. Something he did when he was buying time. Jenna wouldn't take a car without asking. She's done it before." "That's different." He picked up the mug, took a sip, then grimaced like it had gone cold already. "Let's hear her side before we decide what this is." The house stayed quiet after that. No music, no television. Just the sound of the clock ticking above the doorway. When the front door finally opened hours later, I felt it before I heard it. Jenna came in fast, like she'd already decided how this was going to go. Shoes kicked off by the door. Jacket dropped on the chair. A thin line of dried blood sat above her eyebrow. Not dramatic, just enough to make Dad's shoulders shift. "I'm fine," she said before either of us spoke. "I'm really fine." Dad crossed the kitchen in 2 steps. "Sit down." She didn't. She hovered, swaying a little, eyes flicking between us. It looks worse than it is. I stayed where I was, arms folded, not tight, just closed. I borrowed Marissa's car, Jenna said. That's it. I thought it was okay. Dad's gaze slid to me. You let her. I was asleep. Jenna shook her head too fast. You left the keys out, on your desk. You always do that. They're on my desk because Dad asked me to move his car in the morning. She blinked. Once. Then again. It was dark. I didn't think you didn't ask, I said. My voice stayed even. She turned to Dad. I panicked. I didn't want to wake anyone. I just needed to get out of there. Dad's jaw worked. Where were you? A friend's place. By the water. We were leaving early. You were drinking. Her mouth opened, then closed. Not that much. The room felt smaller, not louder. Smaller. I thought Marissa said it was fine, she added. Softer now. She always helps. I felt that land before Dad did. That's not true, I said. Dad didn't answer right away. He looked at Jenna's forehead. The cut. The way she kept touching it like it might disappear. Let's call the insurance company, he said finally. Dad pulled his phone from his pocket but didn't dial yet. He turned it over in his hands, like the answer might be printed on the back. Let's slow down, he said again. Same words. Firmer now. Jenna sank into the chair by the table. Her knee bounced. She pressed a napkin to her forehead even though the bleeding had stopped. I didn't steal anything, she said. I took a car I thought I had permission to use. Dad looked at me. Did you say anything to her last night? No. She was there when you got home. I said goodnight. That's it. Jenna let out a short laugh that didn't sound like one. You don't remember everything you say when you're tired. Dad's eyes stayed on me, waiting. The keys were on my desk. I said, because you asked me to move your car. Jenna's voice rose. Exactly. You knew I might grab them. That doesn't mean I told you to. She stood up again, chair scraping the floor. I was scared. It was late. Everyone had been drinking and I didn't want to be stuck out there. Dad held up a hand. Enough. Jenna's face crumpled. Real tears this time. Or close enough. I thought my sister would understand. I felt something twist in my chest. Not guilt. Something older. She didn't ask. I said quietly. She decided. Dad's jaw tightened. He finally unlocked his phone. We're calling this in. Now. Jenna's head snapped up. You don't have to do that. We do, he said. That's how this works. She reached for his arm. Please. I already told them Marissa said it was okay. The room went still. I looked at her. You told who? She swallowed. The officer. I panicked. Dad lowered the phone slowly. His eyes didn't leave her face. You put this on your sister, he said. No one spoke after that. Dad set the phone on the counter and tapped the screen. Speaker on. The small icon lit up like it had weight. A woman answered, bright and practiced. Thank you for calling. Dad gave his name. His voice sounded steady, but his fingers kept adjusting the phone, nudging it a fraction to the left, then back again. She asked for the policy number. He read it off. 1 digit at a time. Careful. I'm calling about an accident early this morning, he said. My vehicle. There was a pause. Keyboard sounds. Faint clicking. Yes. Mr. Cole. I see the report. Jenna's knee started bouncing again. Faster now. The driver was my daughter. Dad continued. She took the car without asking. Another pause. Was she listed as a named driver on the policy Dad didn't answer right away? His eyes stayed on the counter. No, he said. I'm sorry, the woman replied. Your policy only covers listed drivers. Unauthorized use voids coverage. Dad's shoulders lifted slightly, then dropped. There was alcohol involved. She added, That further confirms the denial. Jenna leaned forward. Wait. Dad held up a hand. Not angry. Just final. So there's no coverage, he said. That's correct. He thanked her and ended the call. The kitchen felt louder after. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe knocked. Jenna's voice came out thin. I didn't think it would go this far. Dad looked at her. Really looked. You told them your sister gave permission. She stared at the floor. I trusted you, he said. I stayed where I was, hands resting flat on the table, not reaching for anything. Dad didn't sit down. He walked to the sink, rinsed the mug that had gone cold hours ago, dried it, put it back in the cabinet like he was resetting something small and controllable. Jenna watched him. I didn't mean to drag Marissa into it. You did, he said. Calm, not raised. You chose that. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. I panicked. That doesn't erase it. The words landed heavier than the call had. I felt them in my shoulders, in the way the room stayed tight. Dad turned to me. His eyes softened. Just a little. You didn't tell her she could take the car. No. He nodded once, like he'd already known but needed to hear it out loud. Then he faced Jenna again. You didn't ask. He said, you took the keys. You drove after drinking, and when it went wrong, you put it on your sister. Jenna's mouth opened, closed. I was scared. So was she. He said, glancing at me, and she didn't lie. Silence stretched. The clock ticked. Someone outside slammed a car door and drove off. I can't fix this for you, Dad continued. I won't. Jenna's voice went sharp. So what? You're just done with me. He shook his head. I'm done pretending this didn't happen. She stood up fast. Chair scraping. I don't have anywhere else to go. Dad's hands stayed at his sides. You'll figure something out. I'll give you time. But not this. He looked around the kitchen, then back at her. I don't trust you in this house right now. Jenna stared at him like she'd misheard. I didn't move. I didn't step in. The decision had already been made. Jenna packed in short bursts. Drawer. Pause. Closet. Pause again. Every few minutes she'd stop like she'd forgotten what came next. Dad stayed in the living room. Lights off. One lamp on by the couch. He didn't follow her. Didn't supervise. Just waited. I leaned in the doorway of my room, watching the hallway shadow shift as she moved back and forth. She came by once with an armful of clothes and stopped when she saw me. You could help, she said. Not angry. Smaller than that. I shook my head. I can't. She swallowed and kept walking. A little later, she came back for shoes. She sat on the floor to tie them, fingers fumbling. I didn't think it would end like this. Dad's voice carried from the living room. Neither did I. She stood, bag slung over her shoulder, looked at him, then at me. I'll pay you back, she said, like a promise she needed to hear herself make. Dad didn't answer. He just nodded once. The front door closed without a slam. I waited for something else to happen. It didn't. It was late when Dad knocked on my door. Not hard. Just enough to announce himself. Can I come in? I moved a stack of folded laundry off the chair. Yeah. He sat, hands on his knees, like he didn't know where else to put them. The house felt different without Jenna's footsteps. Thinner, quieter. He stared at the floor for a moment. The insurance company called back. Same answer. I nodded. Another pause. He rubbed his thumb along the seam of his jeans. If I asked you to say you gave permission, he said, voice low, would you? I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't testing me. He was tired, cornered. No. He closed his eyes, opened them again, not even to help her. I won't lie, I said, not to fix something that already broke. He let out a breath that sounded like relief and disappointment mixed together. I thought that might be your answer. I'm not trying to punish her. I know. He leaned back in the chair. That's the part that scares me. We sat there for a bit. The clock down the hall clicked over to the next minute. Pipes shifted somewhere in the walls. When he stood to leave, he paused at the door. You did the right thing. I didn't say anything back. The door closed softly. The house settled into a different rhythm after that. Quieter, but not fragile. Dad sold what was left of the car and bought something older, practical. He started leaving earlier in the mornings, coming home on time. The kitchen stayed clean without anyone rushing to smooth things over. Jenna sent a message once a month, short updates, work shifts, a small amount set aside. Dad didn't respond right away. When he did, it was brief, polite. Coffee, not home. I watched the distance hold, not as punishment, as shape. One evening, I sat at my desk and placed my keys down where they'd always gone. One set now. I noticed how my shoulders didn't tense the way they used to, how the room felt steady without effort. I thought about the moment Dad asked me to lie, about how easy it would have been to say yes, and how heavy that yes would have followed me. I didn't fix my family. I didn't save anyone. What I did was smaller than that. I stayed honest when honesty cost me comfort. That changed something for me. Not them, me. My name is Marissa Cole, and for the first time in a long while, my life felt like it belonged to me again. At Revenge Mosaicum, we noticed how this story didn't end with forgiveness or victory. It ended with someone choosing herself quietly. If this stayed with you, you know where to find us.